Hey guys, welcome back to Gingerbread Aquatics with Andrew. Today we're going to be talking about some easy beginner aquarium plants for your low-tech planted tank. So with that,
Have you asked them to subscribe yet?
no, I was just getting to that.
Sorry. Do you mind?
Yeah.
If you guys haven't liked and subscribed to this
yes.
video, you guys should go ahead and do that. It would be great.
Can I get back to
How
my
was
video now?
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. Get back to your video.
So with that, I guess we'll get to the main video. Today I have 9 different types of plants that I think are very easy for beginners to grow, that I am growing. I consider myself still a beginner. I don't have any high-tech stuff like CO2 or high lighting or high fertilization. It's just sort of a random amount of fertilizer when I think about it, and definitely no CO2. So these are some of the top, not necessarily top 9, but the 9 plants that I think would be very easy for beginners to start with. I actually got this request a couple of times in some DMs on Instagram, so I figured I'd address it in a video. So the first one is kind of funny to me, but it's algae. Algae is probably going to be actually the easiest plant that you're going to grow inside of your tank. And you can either have that be a plus or a minus. You can have it be something that you like or that you don't like. And in my case, I have come to accept some types of algae and in some places, but I have not accepted that algae in other places. For instance, the green spot algae that I have around the perimeter of my tank, I like that. I like that the tone and the greens that it gives to it and the overall texture to the tank, because otherwise I'd be just looking at a like beigeish wall behind it, and I'd rather have that green in the background. So I leave it on the back and the sides, but on the front viewing panel, I make sure I clean that off. Same thing goes for the other algae that I have in there. I have some other more toughy types of algae, and I think what I have is some of the moss algae, which is what it is a cladoform, I believe. And I have that growing on some of my rocks, but I also don't like all the string algae and hair algae that I get. So I have to go in there and manually remove that. But that's going to be the easiest plant that you are going to grow. So don't try to eradicate all algae in your planted aquarium. That's not going to happen. Just come to terms with it, that it is a natural part of your aquarium. And if you let it grow in one place, that's nutrients that are being utilized by that algae that it can't use another place. So that's sort of my mindset behind allowing algae in my tank. The second plant that I think is a really good beginner plant is Anacarus or Eloda. It goes by many different names, but this is a very resilient, a very beautiful plant, I think. I love its leaflets and how it grows. You trim it, you can plant the trimming back down, and then from that, where you made that cut, usually 2 new stalks will come out. 2 new stems will come out. So you can come back in there and trim those in a couple of days. In my tank, it's been growing very, very well. It's a rather recent addition, but I think Anacarus is a great plant if you are allowed to have it in your state. My third plant would be Guppy Grass. Guppy Grass is a great plant for fry tanks or for even just planted tanks in general. It gets really, really bushy and it starts just taking over an entire area. That's actually why I took it out of my tank that I have right now, because it was just becoming too large and too unmanageable in the small size tank that I have. So I'm actually using it in my breeding setups for my Celestial Cordanios. If you guys are interested in that, I'll leave a card up here for you guys to check out some of those videos pertaining to it. But it makes a great cover for the fry to make them feel more secure and whatnot, and can be a great addition to a planted tank. Plus, its very fine leaves are something very different from some of the other things that are on this list and other plants in general. Usually the finer the leaves, usually it's harder to keep. So having that type of texture in there definitely breaks it up from some of the other monotonous textures and shapes of other leaves. So the fourth plant that I would have to recommend to a new beginner in planted aquariums or looking for low-tech plants would be Java Fern. I think Java Fern, as well as my number 6 one, are 2 very versatile and just great plants to have. They definitely add a lot to the aquascape that you have or to the tank that you have, and are very easy to culture and are very easy to propagate. They just take a little bit longer time to grow, but I think they're a fantastic addition. My number 5 plant that I would recommend would be, I love Corkscrew Val. I think that spiraling nature is very difficult to come across in plants, and for me, the Corkscrew Val that I have just grows absolutely crazy. It's constantly sending out runners and it's constantly propagating, and I have to be removing a lot of it and setting it into other tanks because it grows so quickly. And I think it adds a very unique texture to the overall scape and feeling of the tank. The number 6 one that I would recommend is Anubius, and I feel like Java Fern and Anubius are always recommended, and they're always recommended because they are just two very easy and versatile plants that are hard to kill and just look great in the tank. So Anubius, in my tank I have Anubius nana, and I think Anubius nana petite. There's a little bit of algae growing on them, and I need to separate the nana petite. But overall, I think they're a great plant to have and are very resilient for a new beginner in a low lighting or a less than ideal situation in terms of light. And a brief little tangent here. Lighting, I have a Beamswork and I have a Nightcrew light on my tank, and it's a 30-gallon, it's actually a 27-gallon cube from Marineland, and I think it's about 20 inches tall. So that's a pretty deep tank. If I had a shallower tank, I probably could make do with less lighting. But those lights are by no means very high-end lights or putting out a lot of light. So you really don't need a good amount of light for these plants that I'm growing in my tank personally. So you guys should be able to grow them too. My number 7 plant is Crypticorns. In my tank, I actually have 2 varieties of Crypts I don't really know. I think one of them is Crypt Wendenti Green and the other one is Crypt Wendenti Red, but I could be entirely wrong. I got them from stores that had them traded in, and they didn't know what they were. And the other one was from an auction that just said Crypt. So I got them, and they're doing fantastic in my tank. They're very slow growing, as are Anubius and Java Fern, but they are just a very unique texture and can add a splash of color in the lower tech beginner plants that you wouldn't normally get, because a lot of the other plants that I've said are green, and the Crypts that I have, the Wendenti Red I think, are a very nice addition of color into the tank. My 8th plant that I would recommend is Hornwort, and I feel like Hornwort and Anacharis and Guppy Grass are 3 fantastic plants to grow for fry and for sheltering them, but also for aquascapes like this. My dad has Hornwort floating in his tanks and is doing very, very well. It's growing like crazy, and he's constantly having to get rid of some just because of how quickly it grows in his tanks. I also feel like it does very well planted as well. It doesn't have to be necessarily floating, and it also has a very unique, very smaller, finer leaves that are sort of harder to get in your stem plants or other plants that you have in your tank. And my number 9 plant that I have, and my final plant, would be Pogostemon Octopus. I just recently got this plant maybe 3 weeks ago, but for me already it is doing fantastically well. It is already grown probably about 2 inches in my tank, as well as an inch or so in my propagation tank that I have for my plants. If you're interested in that video, I have that up here in the cards for you guys to check out. But I think it is a great plant, and I'm really looking forward to how it is going to fill out that left side of my tank that I'm showing you guys, because I think that it just has so much potential, and it's a stem plant as well, so you can cut that top, plant it back down, and then multiple shoots will come off of where you cut that plant. So that's all I have for you guys today. If you guys like this video, I would ask that you guys subscribe and check out some of the other videos I mentioned here, and I hope you guys have a blessed day. I'll see you guys in the next one.